My name is Ethan Parker, I'm 28, and last night my parents laughed in my face. My dad raised his glass and said you'll never be as good as your brother. They all chuckled like it was harmless, like the words didn't slice clean through me. The table smelled of lemon cleaner and cheap wine, and I felt something inside me snap quiet final. They thought I'd swallow it again like always. But what they didn't know was that I'd been keeping every receipt. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. You know that sting when the people who raised you turn your kindness into a punchline. This story isn't just about money. It's about the moment you finally stop paying for love. I grew up in a two-story house that always smelled faintly of laundry detergent and fried onions. My dad, George, worked long shifts at a hardware store. My mom, Linda, balanced part-time bookkeeping with keeping up appearances. My brother Ryan arrived 2 years after me and somehow absorbed all the light in the room. Even as kids, the scale tilted his way. I remember a summer barbecue when I was 8. The yard hummed with cicadas, the grass dry under my feet. I handed Dad a wrench to fix the grill handle. Ryan chased Bubbles, giggling. When the smoke cleared, he ran up holding a half-burned hot dog. Mom clapped like he'd invented fire. No one noticed the blister on my thumb from holding the wrench too long. That night, while they laughed at the dinner table, I stared at my plate and whispered, "It's fine." It wasn't. At 12, I built a model rocket for the school fair. I spent weeks sanding the fins, measuring angles. The morning of the fair, Dad patted my shoulder and said, "Proud of you, kid." Then he spotted Ryan juggling soccer balls nearby and shouted, "Now that's talent." When the rocket launched later that day and streaked into the clouds, I looked around for someone to cheer. Nobody was watching. I didn't know it then, but that silence would echo for years. Teenage years made it worse. Ryan became the golden boy, varsity soccer yearbook, smiles, prom king material. I got grades, part-time jobs, and the quiet praise of teachers who said you're responsible. It felt like being told I was wallpaper. On my 17th birthday, Mom forgot the cake. Ryan waltzed in late with a gift bag and said, "Guess I saved the day." She laughed. Always my hero. I laughed, too small and bitter. College was my first taste of distance. I went to community college nearby. Ryan got a partial scholarship out of state. Mom turned every phone call into a Ryan highlight reel. "He's doing so well, his coach said he's special." When she asked about me, it was practical. "You're paying tuition on time, right?" I worked nights at a diner smelling of grease and coffee, sending a little money home whenever Dad's hours got cut. I told myself it was love. The first time Mom asked for help, it was winter. She said, "Power bill's a little high, sweetheart." Just until Friday. I sent $120. Friday came and went. 2 weeks later, she texted, "Gas is killing us." I sent another 50. I was 21, proud that I could help. What I didn't see was how giving once became a habit, a reflex like breathing. Years blurred into routines. I paid my rent, worked overtime, and filled the gaps at home from afar. Ryan came back after college with stories of startup ventures and friends in real estate. I came home with groceries and paper towels. When Mom hosted Thanksgiving, she'd say, "Ryan's bringing a friend from his company." I was the one setting the table. He'd arrive late, hug everyone, and brag about big opportunities. They'd beam at him like a Christmas tree switched on. I'd pass the mashed potatoes invisible. There's one scene I still taste. Thanksgiving 3 years ago. Ryan handed Mom a spa voucher. He'd gotten it free from a client. She teared up like he'd given her diamonds. I slid an envelope with cash under her plate. Rent money they'd asked for just this once. She never mentioned it. When dinner ended, Dad said, "We're lucky to have Ryan around." I was standing right there scraping plates. By 25, I was transferring $650 a month to them: utilities, gas, groceries, sometimes more. I started tracking everything on a spreadsheet because my memory couldn't hold the weight. Each line was a little piece of me disappearing. I didn't know it yet, but that habit, writing, recording, would become the weapon I never meant to build. One night, it rained hard enough to drown the sound of thought. I sat in my studio apartment with a flickering lamp, scrolling through my bank app. The list of transfers looked endless. I stared at the number at the bottom: $28,940 over 4 years. My chest went hollow. Outside, thunder cracked like laughter. I whispered, "They don't even know." But deep down, I realized they did. They always did. I didn't know it back then, but that quiet realization was the start of my rebellion. The second stage of my life was quieter but heavier. At 26, I had a stable job in tech support: cubicles, bad coffee screens, glowing with strangers' problems. I didn't hate it. It just felt like standing still while everyone else moved forward. Ryan, meanwhile, was freelancing. That word floated around him like perfume, vague and expensive. Mom would say, He's building something big. No one ever asked what. One Saturday, Dad called while I was doing laundry. Your brother's car broke down again, he said like a weather report. He's short on cash. I transferred $200 before the dryer stopped spinning. Later that night, Ryan posted a picture of a bar tab, 4 glasses, fancy lighting. Caption celebrating small wins. I stared at the screen, that stupid flex emoji glinting. My pulse thudded in my ears. It kept going like that, a drip feed of just this once. The fridge is empty. Gas bill's late. Your mom's tired. Each message a string. I couldn't stop pulling. I convinced myself it was kindness. It was control. I tried to set limits once. I called Mom, said I need to rebuild my savings before I send more. She sighed long, theatrical. We'll die before we ask again. That promise lasted 12 days. Then came a text, groceries heart emoji. I sent 100. Guilt is the most efficient payment method in the world. Christmas that year was a case study in irony. I gave Mom a weighted blanket because she said she couldn't sleep. She smiled politely. Ryan handed her a framed photo of him at a beach with friends. You're glowing, she said, touching the glass. I wondered if she noticed I'd wrapped her gift in plain brown paper because I couldn't afford the shiny kind. Then came the water heater. Mom called crying. We don't know what to do. I put the charge on my card for points I never used. Later, Aunt Diane told everyone Ryan fixed the water heater. Such a capable young man. My parents nodded proudly. I laughed out loud, a small cracked sound. Nobody noticed. Around that time, weird things started happening. I'd get mail for credit accounts I never opened. Pre-approved cards with my name spelled correctly but sent to Mom's address. I thought it was junk. I didn't know it then, but one of those envelopes held the seed of the twist waiting for me years later. Still, I kept going. Every month I was the invisible scaffolding holding up their comfort. Every phone call ended with another favor. Every visit ended with me carrying groceries or changing a light bulb. They said I was dependable. They meant replaceable. The night before Mom's birthday, the night before the words that would shatter everything, I stood in line at a bakery for her favorite carrot cake. The smell of cinnamon and cream cheese frosting filled the air. I told myself it was worth it, that maybe this time they'd see me. I didn't know that tomorrow's laughter would be the sound of my final thread snapping. Mom's birthday dinner was the beginning of the unraveling, but the years leading up to it were the quiet storms that built the flood. The first sign came 2 months before her birthday. Dad called on a Tuesday night while I was eating instant noodles. His voice was casual, like he was talking about the weather. We're a little tight this month, Ethan. Just until payday. That phrase had lost all meaning. I asked what happened to Ryan's contribution. He chuckled. Your brother's between jobs. You know how it is. I did know. It was always between jobs, never irresponsible. I wired the money anyway, then stared at the transaction confirmation like it might apologize. It didn't. 2 weeks later, I visited home to fix the Wi-Fi. The living room looked the same as always, floral curtains, flickering TV, the faint smell of air freshener trying to mask something sour. Ryan sat on the couch scrolling his phone wearing a new pair of sneakers. Mom was baking like nothing was wrong. When I asked about the bill I just covered, she frowned. What bill? The word hit harder than I expected. The electric one, I said, trying to keep my tone even. Oh, she said, waving her hand. That was ages ago. It was last week. She turned back to the oven, voice light. You're always so dramatic. I left that night with a headache and the strange feeling that my memories and theirs were out of sync, like we were living in parallel timelines. Later that month, Aunt Diane called. Her voice was syrupy as ever. Sweetheart, your parents are worried about you. You've been distant. Distant. That was the word they used after 4 years of direct deposits. I bit my tongue and said, just busy. She sighed. You shouldn't take things so personally. Families aren't ledgers. I hung up before she could say money isn't everything. Because to them it wasn't. To me it was proof that I existed. Then came the group chat. Family dinner Sunday, Mom texted. No question mark, just a command. I stared at the message, thumb hovering. I almost typed, can't make it, but the guilt rose fast, hot, automatic. I went anyway. That dinner was worse than silence, it was theater. The table set perfectly, candles lit, laughter rehearsed. Ryan showed up late again, same grin, same effortless charm. He handed Mom a small box, earrings shiny and perfect. She gasped. You shouldn't have. I wanted to say he hadn't. I'd seen that charge on my credit report last week, a card I never opened. My stomach twisted. I didn't say a word. Dinner rolled on, a parade of fake stories. Ryan talked about his business partners. Dad nodded like a proud investor. I smiled like I was part of the same show. Then came the line that cracked something open. Dad refilled his wine, looked at me and said, "You'll never be as good as your brother." The table laughed. Mom laughed. Even Aunt Diane, who wasn't there, would have laughed if she'd heard. I froze fork halfway to my mouth. In that second, I saw the ledger in my head: 4 years of transfers, groceries, repairs, gas. I felt each number like a bruise. And they were laughing. I excused myself, pretending I needed air, but really I needed proof I still existed. On the porch, the night air felt heavy, electric. I looked through the window at them, my family, my creditors of guilt, laughing at a joke that wasn't funny. I thought about every dollar I'd sent, every apology I'd swallowed. Something inside me shifted from pain to clarity. When I came back inside, Mom was stacking plates. She looked at me and said, "Don't be jealous of your brother." Jealous. The word landed like glass breaking. Ryan clapped my shoulder. "Don't take it personal, man." I looked at him, his perfect grin, his empty eyes, and for the first time I didn't feel small. I felt done. That night, I went home and opened my laptop. The glow from the screen lit the kitchen like a confession booth. I pulled up my banking history, scrolling through years of transfers. The numbers blurred together, forming one long, merciless truth. $28,940. I printed every line, date, and note. The printer hummed like a heartbeat. When it was done, I stacked the pages, hole-punched them, and slid them into a cheap binder. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew one thing: next time they called, I'd be ready. The binder sat on my kitchen counter for weeks like a bomb I was too scared to arm. Every night after work, I'd glance at it between bites of takeout. Sometimes I'd imagine sliding it across my parents' table, watching their faces twist from confusion to guilt. Other nights I'd picture them laughing again, calling me ungrateful, and the fantasy would dissolve. Then one Thursday I got a text from Mom. "Sunday family meeting. Bring your checkbook. Dad's doing numbers." A smiley face at the end, that smug digital wink. My chest tightened, but my hands stayed steady. "I'll be there," I typed. I even brought paper towels because showing up empty-handed in our family was an invitation to lose the argument before it started. Sunday came with the thick heat of late August. Their house looked the same: too many framed photos of Ryan, the scent of lemon cleaner so sharp it stung. Dad sat at the table with a calculator, stacks of envelopes spread like a war map. Mom gave me that bright smile she used for guests, not sons. Ryan leaned on the counter, scrolling through his phone. "You're late," he said, not looking up. I set the paper towels down, then placed the binder on the table. The sound it made, that dull thud of truth, cut through the hum of the ceiling fan. "Before we talk about a plan," I said, "we need to talk about the last 4 years." Mom frowned. "What's that?" "Records," I said. "Transfers, receipts, utilities, groceries, everything I've paid." Ryan snorted. "Dude, you're keeping score now." Dad's voice sharpened. "This isn't the time to play accountant." "It's exactly the time," I said. "You're asking for more. Let's look at what's already been given." Mom flipped through the first few pages, her smile fading. "What money? We never received a single dollar from you." Her denial was so quick, so confident, it almost worked. Almost. I slid my phone toward her. "Bank app. Every transfer has your name on it. Notes, dates, screenshots. If you want, I can print statements." Dad pushed the phone back like it burned. "This is disrespectful." "What's disrespectful," I said quietly, "is pretending it never happened." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Then Mom said, "After all we've done for you, you're throwing money in our faces." "I'm not throwing it," I said. "I'm acknowledging it." Ryan finally looked up. "You always were dramatic. Just pay the bills and drop the martyr act." I turned to him. "If I'm never as good as you, let the golden boy handle it." His jaw tightened. Dad slammed the calculator shut. "Enough. We're a family. We help each other." "Then start helping yourselves," I said. The air in the room turned heavy. For once I wasn't shaking. My voice didn't crack. I looked at them, really looked, and realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. I left the binder on the table, walked to the door, and said the words that would change everything. "I'm not your bank. I'm your son." No one moved. The air hung between us like static before lightning. Dad's face flushed the color of cheap wine. Mom's hand trembled around the edge of the binder. Ryan leaned back in his chair, smirking, the picture of someone who'd never had to clean up a mess he didn't make. "Sit down," Dad ordered, his voice low, trying to claim authority that used to scare me. "We're not finished here." "I am," I said. "You don't walk out on your family," he snapped. "Then maybe you shouldn't treat your son like an ATM." Ryan laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Jesus, Ethan, you really love playing the victim." I turned toward him. "Funny. You like playing the hero with other people's money." He scoffed, but his eyes flickered. For a split second, I saw panic, a tiny crack in his confidence. Mom jumped in before I could say more. You're being cruel. We never asked you for that much. You offered. I met her gaze. I offered because you made it sound like love had a price tag. She looked ready to protest, but Dad cut her off. That's enough, he said, rising from his chair. His shadow stretched across the table. We do what we have to do to survive. Then survive without me, I said. That's when it happened, the twist I didn't see coming. Ryan grabbed the binder, flipping through the pages like it was a deck of cards. You think this makes you some kind of saint? He stopped halfway, squinting. Wait, why are there charges for credit protection? You never had a credit card, did you? My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? He smirked. Guess you do now. The room went cold. What did you do? I asked. Voice barely above a whisper. Mom blinked, confused. Ryan. He shrugged, too casual. Relax. It was just a short-term thing. They mailed the pre-approved offer here, and you weren't using it. I figured family right. Dad froze. What the hell did you just say? Ryan spread his hands. It's not a big deal. I paid most of it back. How much? I asked. He didn't answer. I reached for my phone, scrolling, searching. There it was. A credit card in my name. The one I thought was junk mail. Thousands charged. No payments. My throat burned. You stole from me. Ryan rolled his eyes. Oh, come on. You act like you're broke. Mom gasped. Ryan, tell me you didn't. He slammed the binder shut. You always take his side. He's been keeping score for years. I just evened it up. Evened it up, I repeated, almost laughing. You drained me dry, and now you're pretending it's justice. Dad's voice cracked like a whip. Enough. But no one listened. The room was noise and heat and 4 lifetimes of resentment colliding. I stood there looking at them, my family, my history, my exhaustion, and felt something shift again. Not anger this time. Clarity. I took a slow breath. You know what? Keep the card. Keep the binder. You'll need the receipts when the collectors call. Mom started to cry. Ethan, please. I shook my head. I'm done explaining. I'm done being reliable for people who rewrite reality. Ryan muttered something, maybe an insult, maybe a plea, but I was already at the door. My hand touched the knob, cool metal against my skin, the only solid thing in the house. Behind me, Dad's voice broke through one last time. Don't walk away from this family. I turned just enough to look him in the eye. I'm not walking away, I said. I'm walking back to myself. And with that, I stepped outside. The sun hit my face like forgiveness. Inside, through the window, I saw them frozen, 3 silhouettes around a binder full of truth. The door closed behind me. The sound was final. The next morning, sunlight crept through the blinds like a slow confession. My phone buzzed, missed calls, unread messages, the usual aftermath of a Parker family storm. I didn't open any of them. I brewed coffee, black and quiet, and stared at the binder I'd brought back home. They hadn't even noticed me take it when I walked out. Typical. I opened it, flipped through the pages, and stopped at the section labeled credit protection. I'd already filed a fraud report the night before. Ryan's card, my name, his debt. It would take weeks to investigate, but I wasn't in a hurry. I'd lived in their timeline long enough. By noon, Dad sent a voicemail, half anger, half desperation. You can't just do this, Ethan. Family needs unity. I deleted it before it finished. Mom's text followed. We can fix this. Come talk. Bring the binder. There it was again, the illusion that I was a resource, not a person. I looked at the binder, then at my laptop. With one click, I uploaded copies of every page, transfers, receipts, screenshots to a private cloud folder set to auto-forward if anyone tried to contact my employer or open new accounts in my name. Just in case. That wasn't revenge. It was insurance. Later, I took a long drive out of town, windows down, air smelling like freedom and burnt rubber. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt something colder, steadier, resolve. Maybe they'd rewrite the story again. Maybe I'd be the villain this time. Let them. I wasn't playing their version of family anymore. They thought walking away was the end. It wasn't. It was the beginning of boundaries they could never cross again. And the best part, they'd never even see the weapon I left behind, the truth sitting quietly in the cloud waiting. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit subscribe, because this story isn't over. Maybe you've been the one holding everything together while everyone else takes credit. Maybe you've learned the hard way that love without respect is just manipulation in disguise. I used to think walking away made me the villain. Now I know it just made me free. Stay tuned, because sometimes closure isn't quiet, sometimes it's the loudest no you'll ever say.